So we got the majority of the questions done, but we got a little bit of time here, and then I know I had people, guys, that cornered me and said, when do I get to talk to the candidates? So I don't know. They're gonna hit you up on some stuff. But we'll finish up these questions, and then we will have fun. So I'm gonna go first with Mr. Baldacci. And this is in those accountability and the rule of law kind of questions that we talk about, because we do have the rule of law, not the rule of kings. Because if we had the rule of kings, I would be the king, and you don't really want that. So. Joe, if Democrats secure a House majority this November, the responsibility of the executive branch oversight will fall heavily on Congress. What specific oversight tools or legislative reforms will you prioritize to ensure the executive branch, regardless of who occupies the White House, is held strictly accountable to the rule of law?
Thank you very much, and that's probably one of the most...
It's not on.
Oh, yeah. Should have a white light.
Hello?
There we go.
There you go. One of the most important questions, really, in this election is how we're going to hold President Trump accountable. He's a president who has run roughshod over the Constitution, has acted recklessly with our military, our economy, our people, in so many different ways. I think that the House, if we're going to be strong and we're going to send a message, we're going to have to use the power of the purse. The House uniquely has it's where funding originates. And we're going to have to hold his feet to the fire by withholding funding until we can negotiate a better deal. And right now we have a rubber stamp. But we need to use the power of the purse, the power of congressional investigations, the power of bringing attention to issues, but also putting officials on the hot seat. There is so much corruption in this administration, you don't know where to start. But we're going to have to start someplace, and the place I would start is withholding funding until he concedes to some democratic values. That's the first thing. The next thing is to elect a Democratic president. But in the next 2 years, we're going to have to use the power of the purse and not back down. Okay? I was very disappointed in the Senate. We're going to have to use that in order to leverage important democratic values. We're going to have to investigate, hold accountable, subpoena, be willing to consider impeachment of different officials. There's a lot of things we can do. This is a president that doesn't hold back, and we can't hold back in how we reassert ourselves as a co-equal branch of government.
Thank you. Mr. Wood. Voters are exhausted by a gridlocked, unproductive Congress. You know, it's funny, like, everybody has favorable thoughts about their congressman, but they think Congress as a whole stinks. They do, it's a crazy thing,
But not our senator.
no, but they're tired of that. Unproductive Congress that Jesus, this is a mouthful. That often prioritizes political theater over passing impactful legislation. If you are part of a new House majority, how do you plan to break through institutional gridlock to ensure essential bills actually get to the floor and pass into law?
Yeah, well, I think whoever is our nominee and defeats Paul LePage, because I think any of the four of us can and will, we have a unique position of power in our district because it is one of the most swing districts in the country. And when we get elected, are able to say this is a message that resonates across party lines. Everyone up here focuses very much on the issues of affordability, universal health care, the need for real changes in investments in housing, renewable energy. All of these things we can go to Washington with a lot of momentum and power behind, and also persuade the leaders of our own party and demand that they make these priorities. And not every district has that power. The other thing I think is really important is leading by example. When I helped start a group called End Citizens United to help get big money out of politics and lead that effort, one of the initiatives that I developed and led on was getting candidates to reject corporate money. as a way of proving to voters whose side they were on. When we started that, there was a handful of members of Congress that did it. Today, it's over 60. And that has helped build the momentum to getting corporate money out of politics, is more and more candidates leading by example. And that's what, I believe that's how we're going to restore trust with voters, but also how we can build momentum for these priorities. I've committed not only not to take corporate money or lobbyist money, but also not to trade or own individual stocks, or to own or trade any cryptocurrency. And I think the people are on our side. When you ask voters, do you want your member of Congress to own and trade stock and enrich themselves? Well, they're not, over 95% say they do not want that. I don't know who the 5% are that do, but you know, by electing more and more people that say, even before we get this law passed, I am gonna lead by example and do this. It really does help build momentum for those priorities when you are just one of 435 people.
Page, Ms. Loud. Restoring faith in our government requires tackling corruption head-on. Seem to be talking a lot about corruption. What concrete ethics reforms will you champion, such as stricter campaign finance laws, transparency mandates, or bans on congressional stock trading, to prove to the people of CD2 that Washington can work for them rather than the special interest?
Yeah, so I'm only 29, and I do not remember a time where I trusted the government. The first time I could vote was 2015 when I turned 18 years old, and so luckily that first vote was for Bernie Sanders. But since then, the first president after I turned 18, since I've been an adult, was Donald Trump. And then we had a Biden administration that had its good and it had its bad. I think overall we're seeing some pretty negative outcomes of both of these administrations here in Maine and across the country. We need people with creativity and this belief in a new kind of government where we're all taken care of and our environment is respected. And to do that, there's a lot of things that have to be done in Washington. When I decided to run for office, I called one of the PACs that is actually endorsed in this race. And I said, hey, I would love to talk to you. And they asked me how much money I would make if I called through my Rolodex. And I was like, maybe $10,000 if I groveled. And he said, that should be closer to $50,000. We have to stop electing people who can call through their Rolodex and make $250,000. Because that is not representative of the 60% of Americans who are living paycheck to paycheck. So first, we start by not putting politicians in office who are only friends with people who can put them in office. And we start putting people in there who work for the people and with the people. I am a big fan of overturning Citizens United. Obviously, we have to get money out of politics. I believe we have to uncap the House, impose term limits, and ban members from trading stocks or becoming lobbyists. Three of us on this stage have taken the pledge to not take super PAC money, and I think that's really important. Right now, we have corporations and rich people trying to buy our politicians and our elections, and it is working. It is why those of us down here in the bottom 60% are having such a hard time surviving in this nation right now.
Yeah. And Mr. Dunlop, if you get to Washington, the reality of a closely divided Congress means that passing meaningful legislation requires collaboration. How do you plan to balance your party principles with the practical necessity of reaching across the aisle? And can you share an example from your past work where you successfully worked across the political aisle to get things done?
That's pretty easy. Before I get into the answer, I do want to give a plug for what our moderator said earlier on about getting people out to vote. Also, we have legislative candidates who I hope you will all support and pay attention to. The last election, the Democrats maintained a majority in the House by a combined total of 62 votes in 4 races statewide. Exactly. So every vote does matter. In terms of how I will work and have worked collaboratively in order to move legislation forward as a Democrat, and first of all, you run on your values. right? That's, I'm a Democrat, a lifelong Democrat, but I believe in what I believe, and when people ask me questions, I answer them. And they base their decision to vote on the answers they receive. Then you vote your values. And I think that's all systemically pretty simple. If you get voted out of office because of your values, I don't think there's a better way to leave if you stand up for something that you believe in and lose. But in terms of moving something forward that I cared very deeply about, that it was a bit of a trek. We were one of 7 states in the United States that did not have an independent legislative office of program evaluation and government accountability. So a group of us, 3 of us, fought like hell to get it done, and the strongest opposition we had actually was from our fellow Democrats. We were able to finally convince folks that this is something the legislature could really use. We create programs, we turn them loose, and then years later, are they really doing what we wanted them to do? Are they doing what we intended them to do? And have an objective third party, basically a performance audit to tell us if it's not working, what could we do better? That was something that it was sort of a signature thing that I was quite proud of in my time in the legislature. I didn't do it alone. I had 186 partners, 185 partners, but it took some convincing to get it done. And again, transparency and accountability is something that we should not be afraid of in government. We should embrace it. As Secretary of State, my Republican friends watch me like a hungry hawk hovering over a big fat mouse hole, waiting for me to make a false move. Ladies and gentlemen, that's accountability, and I have no problem being accountable for what I have done as a public official.
Yeah.
Thank you. We got a little bit of time here, and I want to follow up with something that Paige Loud talked to, and Lisa and I, she knows where I'm going with this. But Paige mentioned uncapping the House. How many people here know what uncapping the House is and what it means? All right, well, I'm going to mansplain it to the rest of you. So, the funny thing about the Constitution is it never said how many House of Representatives that we needed to have to represent the people. Now, I don't know when it was, but it was a while back there, before any of us were born. I think
1913.
1913, there you go, Mr. Dunlap, the little historian. In 1913, they decided that 435 people were all that we needed to represent all the people in the United States. The cool thing about uncapping the House, at least in my opinion, or the thing about uncapping the House, is it doesn't need a constitutional amendment to do such. It just needs a vote from the legislature. By uncapping the House, there's a lot of different feelings about it, but one of the biggest things about uncapping the House, or the proponent of uncapping the House, is that you have smaller populated districts, so you have more people, almost twice as many people in some realms, to represent the people easier, which CD2 probably would be a good candidate for, because we have a lot of the Republicans might actually be happy because they win one of their districts all the time. So my question to all of you, and I want to follow up, is just a quick 30-second, because we know what Paige thinks. But Jordan, do you support uncapping the House? Why or why not?
Yes, I would be open to it. I think I focus on other reforms that I think are more realistic for us to accomplish that would achieve certain similar goals. And that first one is independent redistricting. If we had an independent redistricting committee in all 50 states, could create districts that are much more representative of the public. And what we are seeing right now with this mid-decade redistricting is one of the worst things our democracy has experienced, I think, in recent years, and a democracy that's experienced a lot of bad. But I would support lifting the cap on the number of seats in Congress. It's more difficult to get to.
Nothing's easy in this world. Joe, what about you?
I think, like Jordan said, I'm open to it, but I do think I would try to focus on governmental reform, yes. But I think the Supreme Court needs reform, and the Congress can do stuff statutorily. And I think that would be a much bigger opportunity for reform. I do like the idea generally that you have more representatives in a smaller district. That's great, but I would focus on the Supreme Court and the executive branch to try to get some reforms done there, but I would be definitely open to the idea. It's creative and it would help a lot of rural places.
Awesome, thank you. Paige, we know you support it, why?
Well, I love that you think it's creative. That's what we need in Congress, guys. Creativity and the imagination for a better future. I support this because I live in Maine now, actually. I don't think I would have ever thought about this in Oklahoma, but running for this district, 27,000 square miles, the realities in Lewiston, Maine and Holton, Maine are completely different. And I think we deserve more representation. I believe you should be able to like touch your representatives. I think you should know them. And it's really hard to do that when you have one person for 27,000 square miles.
Absolutely, and Matt?
I also like the idea, at one time, we had 8 members of Congress representing Maine. So the idea of having a bigger footprint would be very attractive. But I also agree that there's a lot of structural things that we need to tackle. The rule book has kind of gone out the window. And I think this is where Democratic leaders in Washington are really falling down. They're hunkered down, they're waiting for the midterms, they get the majority back and go back to the way things were. We can never go back to the way things were. The way things were if we are going to truly have a democracy, we have to rebuild these institutions so they are assured that they will work for the people, not for the corporate interests or the billionaires, and going down that continued slope of depravity that just continues to tilt the field against working families. And that, whatever structures we can reform and replace, I think we need to tackle.
Excellent. Keep your microphone. You know, I got to thinking, while I was listening to you all talk, well, I'm going to plug myself as the Christmas Tree King of Cornville. And I don't know if any of you have seen my motto or the side of my pickup truck, but if you do, I have, it was the best marketing decision I ever made, but I have a quote from E.B. White. And it says, "I'd really rather feel bad in Maine than feel good anywhere else." And my question to all of you as we go down, and we just got out of it, but when you feel bad in Maine, think March, the Ides of March, just mud and cold, and you're chomping at the bit to get out, and you'd really rather, you'd rather feel bad in Maine. What part of Maine do you think about in those moments, and what about Maine keeps you here and makes you happy?
So, I grew up Mount Desert Island, and around Bar Harbor, and the western side of Western Bay, and no matter, there's no such thing as bad weather down there. Even when it's 40 below zero and freezing rain, it's still a beautiful place to be. And where I am in Old Town, Old Town is a great community, and in Old Town, the beautiful thing about Old Town is the people. The neighbors I have, I remember when I was a cook, and I used to take all the holiday shifts so that all the other cooks could be with their families. I was single, living in an apartment, renting an apartment, and it was Thanksgiving, and I had to cook a meal for the basketball team and some of the foreign students that were there. And it never occurred to me to actually go grocery shopping. I had nothing in the house. So I get done cooking all day, have nothing to eat. And all of a sudden there's a knock on the door. It was one of our utility workers who said, "We thought you might be by yourself, so we brought you a meal, a Thanksgiving dinner meal." And that's the type of thing that you cannot replicate anywhere else, is that sense of community. Whether the folks I grew up with in the island or the people I call my neighbors now, I tell new legislators, when you get the House and Senate registered, keep it in the glove compartment. Because you get a flat tire in the middle of the night, you figure out where you are, you call the local representative and senator, they're going to come help you. That's what I think of.
Excellent. Paige, what about you? What makes you love me?
So when I first moved here, I immediately started working in people's homes. I've been in Aroostook County, Piscataqua, and Penobscot as a social worker. When I think about spring or getting out of the Ides of March, I think of Aroostook County. I love Aroostook County. It's what made me fall in love with Maine. The people in Aroostook County, the places in Aroostook County. I think about picking rhubarb in Linnaeus and drying sunflower seeds in Benedicta. I think of the first time I ever chopped wood in St. Francis, which was right across the street from the St. John River where I caught my first brook trout. I saw my first moose north of Ashland, and now I see them in many people's living rooms and backyards. And there's nothing I don't love about Maine. I left Oklahoma to try to find a place that I loved and I loved living. And I found it in the 2nd District, and I found it deep in the county.
I feel we can do without black flies, but other than that. Joe, what about you? You've lived here for your entire life. What makes Maine your home?
Well, family, obviously, but this is such a beautiful state. From the coastline, the mountains, the western part of the state where there's skiing. It's a beautiful state wherever you go, but my fondest memories are going down to the coast, either in the Bar Harbor area or further down. You just have the most beautiful coastline, just being out on the water, just enjoying that is probably one of the most relaxing and peaceful things you could do. But there's so much to enjoy about Maine that the list could never stop. But that would be, the coast of Maine, I think, is without exception one of the most beautiful spots in the world.
Absolutely. And Jordan?
I love history. I'm a history buff. One thing I really enjoyed about the campaign is just learning more about our history. I mean, we're in Skowhegan today, where Margaret Chase Smith was born.
Yes.
Lived, yeah.
Yes.
And we have such a rich political tradition, represented by people like that. And people from out of state, ask like what's special about Maine. And I do think that we develop a certain type of political leader that's in line with our state motto, "Dear Go We Lead." And I think, just very proud of the people we have here in Maine. And I think that's really what makes the state. And, as a gay man, just so proud to be in a state that was the first state to pass gay marriage over ballot initiative.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is just, it's a state that really accepts you for who you are. The most recent invasion, really, of ICE into our communities, particularly Lewiston, Auburn, where I live, to see how that community responded to that level of hate, I think it shocked people in DC a bit to see, for some people who were the whitest state in America, to see the community come together in defense of a group of refugee and asylum seekers that Donald Trump thought that they would be able to come in here and go after that community without us standing up for them. And the community in Lewiston, everyone up on stage I know was at demonstrations and having, in defense of those people. And my parents are here. I remember at the earliest day, I was probably 10 years old, when there was a group of neo-Nazis that were coming in to target the Somali community in Lewiston and tell them to get out, stop coming here. And Lewiston organized a march with 5,000 people, a peace march, called Out of Many One. And I think about moments like that, about how much I love Maine, the people of Maine, and what we stand for.
Thank you. Well, I think I want to share with you what I think about, and I think you guys hit the nail on the head. I've lived here for my entire life, 46 out of 46 years, and but for 4 years that I lived in Skowhegan, I've lived in Cornville my entire life. And I think that no matter how dark it gets, no matter how close we think Washington is to Maine, it's not. And no matter what's happening in the rest of the world, we have the privilege of being able to go out into the woods.
Yeah.
And I encourage everybody, if you're not feeling good, if you're feeling down, if you're feeling blue, what's wrong with this world, go out into the woods. Go take one of those tote roads up there in Bingham North. Sit down, listen to the birds, listen to the loons, see the fireflies. Even at its worst, it's still okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So now we're going to get into the penultimate part. That's another big word too. The next to the last question. And this is a big one, and it is another one for all of you. And I think this is really the most important one. Because boys, do you guys have a hell of a task. I think you have a very, very daunting task. And I think we all know that. We'd be foolish if I think we'd be kidding ourselves if we thought that this was a cakewalk. It's all fun when we're here and we're all on the same page, but next 6 months is gonna be a pain. Former Governor Paul LePage has a strong established base of support in this district.
God knows why.
But CD2 is also defined by a massive number of independent, unenrolled voters. If you are the nominee, what is your specific strategy to build a broad coalition that keeps Democrats energized while successfully winning over the independent and moderate voters necessary to defeat LePage in November? Joe, I'll start with you.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
take two solid minutes here, we got time.
Okay, very important question. First of all, we are gonna win as Democrats, there's no question about it, we have to win.
We must.
We must win, and I think we'll all be united in that. I have a record of winning elections and outperforming the national ticket in all my Senate elections by 7 to 12 points, which is what we have to do in this district in order to win. And my brand of politics is less ideological and more pragmatic about what I can do, what I can actually do for people, or what can I vote to protect for them. Medicare and Social Security are the two biggest issues in this election. The House Republicans put out a budget last year to raise retirement age and to cut your cost of living increases. We're gonna hit Paul LePage over the head every single day about the economy. The people are hurting. I've been in Aroostook County, I've been on the coast, I've been over to Lewiston and Auburn. People are not doing well. The cost of gas is going up, the cost of groceries is going up, health insurance, housing. We're going to spend every single day beating LePage on the head about the economy because he doesn't know what to do. All he knows what to do is to follow Donald Trump, and that is not good enough for any of us. Okay, let me just tell you that. What I can offer is an actual record of working on healthcare, on jobs, protecting teachers, protecting reproductive choice for people, and the environment. I have a solid record in the state Senate, helped pass several state budgets, which only passed by one vote. If we lost any of those votes, the Republicans were intent on shutting down the government and cutting your health care. Okay? That's their whole mantra. We can do better. I have a record of getting elected and several times, outperforming the national ticket, but my brand of politics will be less ideological and more pragmatic about what I can do for people regardless of who they are or where they live in this district.
Mr. Dunlap.
So I think in terms of, and Joe, I know you've outperformed the top. You'll never do as well as I did my 4th term in the House. Right? To be fair, I was unopposed. But you got 100% of the vote. You know, I think to the question about building a coalition beyond the primary, actually, which is incredibly important. You know, this is one of the things I was encouraged, what I was encouraged to run because of my profile in the district, my background, the work I've done. Growing up on a farm just outside of Bar Harbor, you know, working in the family business. We had a textile business. I also worked in food service for close to 20 years. Sometimes working 2 full-time jobs at the same time. A friend of mine worked 3. Worked on a potato washing machine that he'd sleep on top of. When the alarm would go off, he'd go fix whatever was wrong and go back to sleep. And then do his other 2 jobs during the day. And that's what people have to do. And so I think I identify very well with people in the district. My background is a lifetime sportsman, something that resonates very strongly in rural Maine. I was executive director of the Sportsmen's Alliance of Maine for a year, helped reform the administration there. So I think in terms of what we've seen, especially with some of the polling data that came out, you know, the UNH poll that came out that showed that all of us were doing very well, neck and neck or closer, even with LePage. I had a 68% approval rating among independent voters. Now that is really where the general election is going to be decided. So I think, you know, the work that I've done, really not even as a Democrat, but as a public servant to help people navigate the things that they need to get through in order to make their lives better and make their communities stronger, is going to be the strongest message that I can take forward. Again, the strategy does not change. You meet people where they are and you listen to what they have to say. And the curious thing about that, when you listen to them and tell them what they've told you in terms of a policy initiative, they're always going to tell you it's the best speech they've ever heard, because they know that they've been listened to. The most important thing we can convey to voters, whether they're independents, Democrats, or Republicans, is that they matter. What they think matters, what their dreams are matter, what their frustrations are matter, and that I will be positioned to go down there to Washington and address those issues on their behalf.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Wood?
Yeah, I mean, I think the majority of voters in our district are unenrolled independent, and I think a lot of national pundits are confused by our district because it is unique. It is, but I think when I graduated high school in 2008, Barack Obama nearly won all 11 counties in the district. He won 10. Little Piscataquis, he lost by like 2 points or something. But he won all 10 of 11 counties again when he ran for re-election. Obviously, we know that Donald Trump has won it the last 3 times. But what that says to me, because there's not many places in the country where that's true, is that we have an electorate that feels very left behind and let down by both party establishments. And for so many people that are desperate for a future that they can believe in, and for political leaders that they can trust and believe in, I think they are looking for independent reformers, and that's really my life's work. I have spent as much time and energy going up against the Democratic Party and getting them to be better as I have working on other issues. And so I think it starts with trust, and that's the campaign we're running. We've had close to exactly 40 town halls now across all 11 counties, and I've committed as a member of Congress I'll have one in every county every year. And that's about proving that level of trust and listening to voters. And it informs how we run this campaign, and I think is how we'll beat Paul LePage, is by going into all the counties, every town across our district, and not giving up on any voter, but working to reestablish trust. And then we've got to deliver the change that they need, because it has been too long since we have had a party that's delivered on things like Medicare for all, universal child care, and other big historic changes that are going to improve the lives for people and improve our state.
Thank you. And Ms. Loud, Mrs. Loud.
The person that can win this against Paul LePage is the person that's going to bring meaningful change to people's lives right now during the campaign. When I launched my campaign, I had made it a goal to use as many of my donations and campaign funds to meet people's needs right now. So that means holding food drives at all of our town halls, making sure if I'm going and knocking on someone's door, if I see a need, which I'm able to see because I'm a social worker, I don't have to ask about all of them. But if I see a need, I can make sure we have a volunteer who will come over and fix that broken step, or make sure that we can pick up their food box from Meals on Wheels if they're not able to make it out there. And that's what the person who wins this primary has to do. Regardless of which one of us it is, our campaign finances need to go towards meeting people's basic needs right now. They don't need to go towards a ton of ads, because people are going to see that you are here helping me right now. And you can make a change right now, because you know I need change right now, and I need help right now. Mainers can't wait until 2028 to get better access to food, or to have more hospital beds, or to make sure their bills are covered, or they can afford their heating oil. As a social worker, I'm really good at connecting to people, and connecting to people of all parties, Republicans, independents, unenrolled, people that don't care about politics, but I'm also really good at engaging young people. I'm 29 years old. I just graduated from the University of Maine, and young people are excited. They're excited that there are young people running. Before I launched this campaign, I wrote policy for the Graham Plattner campaign.
Yeah.
I was there from September to January. And that is a campaign that is taking over the state, and they have a broad-based coalition across the state, and whichever one of us wins has to make sure we're part of that. People are already engaged. And part of what his campaign is going to be doing is meeting people's basic needs through a program called Kapow. Ask me about it afterwards. But it's something that we all have to be focused on, is Mainers want someone who can help them. And they can do that through policy, but they're also willing to do it when they're here at home. The last person that beat Paul LePage was a woman. and she's our current governor. And Paula Page has a hard time beating women. You know, I think right now Republicans in Washington and here in Maine are expecting two white men in their 60s and 70s to argue with one another in a room for 5 months about the same things they've been arguing about for the last 3 decades. That's not what I'm doing. I'm here to make people's lives better. I'm here to tell you how Paula Page is not going to do that. Also, the only person that can beat Paula Page is the person that's willing to call what is happening in Gaza a genocide.
Yeah.
Who's willing to come out and say we have to stop killing children and civilians across the globe and put that money back into home right now. And you have to be willing to disavow the Democratic establishment. You can go watch my speech from the Democratic Convention on YouTube, but I have no problem telling the Democratic Party they are also part of the problem. They are also the reason fascism has taken over America.
Yeah.
Well, there. I got a quick question for all of you. None of you got drunk on Reddit and posted anything 10 or 15 years ago that's gonna come kick you in the ass about 10 minutes later.
That's also the best part about me. I have no record for any of them to go after.
Oh, good.
I'm just a good old Mainer who makes sure your mom and dad have food and access to health care.
There you go. Joe, you don't have anything in your past.
I didn't even know what Reddit was.
Oh, okay. Well, it's
So
a,
my daughters had to explain it to me.
it's a bitch for politicians
Yeah,
is what it is.
that's what I've heard. Okay.
All right, guys. Hey, I am really excited for what's happening, and this is your favorite time because politicians love to talk, which is it's a wonder that I'm not a politician, but if that was the only metric. But we promised you we'd give you a couple of minutes to finish up, to talk about yourselves, to anything that we haven't hit here that you wanted to get out and go ahead with. So Joe, the microphone's right in front of you. Take a couple of minutes just to sell yourself one last time, and then after that, you get to get out there and talk to people, okay?
Great, thank you very much, and thank you for having me. I just want to start, I guess, to talk about my background. I know people know me, but maybe not know the whole story, but I'm the youngest of 8. I worked in an Italian restaurant that had been there for 75 years. My parents ran Baldacci's, which was also in Skowhegan. We worked here for 10 years. After working at the restaurant, I went to law school, became an attorney, been practicing law for 35 years in Bangor. I'm not a corporate lawyer. I represent individuals. I represent thousands of individuals in numerous circumstances. You have to be a general practitioner in Bangor or here in Maine, and not a specialist, because people have many different issues they need help with. I've been elected 4 times to the Bangor City Council, twice as mayor. The major focus there was on economic development. We bought up all the land along the Penobscot River, because when I was growing up as a kid, that whole area was an industrial junkyard. You didn't want to look at it. Over successive councils, we purchased the land, remediated it, sued the gas company to make contributions. It's a beautiful walkway, but it's also where the waterfront concerts are now that draw over 100,000 people. We can do things together as a community. I'm convinced of it. Also, I had to deal with Paula Page. Paula Page, when I was mayor the last time, tried to put a private prison for the mentally incompetent defendants criminal defendants in the middle of a residential and commercial neighborhood next to a 90-year-old lady. She was pissed, I was pissed, the community got galvanized. We enacted a land use moratorium, threatened to be sued by LePage. He never came through. We stopped that program. It would have been disastrous for that part of Bangor. There had been no thought put through to it. They didn't even talk to the local police department about what would happen for security reasons. And there's so much about the LePage administration and being a city councilor. Cut revenue sharing, cut aid to education, audited our books because he thought we were helping illegal immigrants. Okay, this is not what we want to return to. Okay, in the Senate, I have a record of working on seniors and healthcare. I've chaired Health and Human Services. I have voted for every expansion of our Maine Care program to tens of thousands of people, because I believe healthcare is a human right that everybody deserves, okay? And as I said, I fought back against cuts to the Medicare program. I had sponsored legislation that passed. It was included in the first budget that I was there to add $90 million to funding for hospitals and nursing homes. I passed legislation to require that all EMT people in the state of Maine have Narcan on them and be able to administer it, okay? We need to save lives in this epidemic. And you believe it or not, that was not a requirement before my bill was passed and signed by the governor. So there's a lot we can do together, and I think what's important is that we maintain our democratic values about caring for people, which I think have been obscured by a lot of disinformation that's been put out there by the media, right, left, or indifferent. But we have a proud history as Democrats. We have a proud history in this state of electing good people who have done good work, done great work on occasion, and we can do it again all together, and I ask for your help. Thank you very much.
Now,
So I get asked the question, why do you want to be in Washington? And factually, I really don't. But this is a different time. This is a different time. And I met with a group of people not long after the fall election who were feeling a little bit traumatized by everything that just happened. And they're particularly concerned about the Project 2025 document, which is the blueprint for dismantling our democracy. And I wasn't really sure what I was going to say to them. There were about 250 people that showed up until I saw them sitting there looking to me, and I said, this is the answer. You get committed and you show up, and then you keep showing up. And as the conversation matured about a possible candidacy against Jared Golden, I realized that I couldn't really say those things to people and not be there with them. And that's the same pull that I've always felt in this business. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because that's the way my parents were. They were very driven to supporting people in the community. And I had to sit down and unpack how I got to the legislature, because it was not part of my trajectory at all. I never had any interest in politics. I was in food service. I worked in commercial printing and publishing. And I had a totally different idea. When I was 18 years old, I thought I'd be a high school history teacher and a cross-country coach or something like that. I think that went out the window by October break, but but here I was, trying to figure out how it all started. Where it started was at the time clock in one of the kitchens I worked at, when one of our young co-workers, who was the first person in her family to go to college, had fallen short on their installment payments, and they were told they had to leave. Couldn't take final exams. And I said, well, let's figure this out. Come back tomorrow. We went around the kitchen, we all banded together. You only needed a few $100s. We raised it and paid her bills so she could stay in school at least for the semester. And I thought we should be doing more of that sort of thing. I wish I could remember her name, honest to gosh. The young woman changed my life. And I started thinking about the idea of having some type of a fund for student workers. And somebody said, well, maybe you should talk to the local state representative. Maybe there's some state help. And he and I became friends, and over the last 30 years, I've been involved, after he talked me into running for the legislature, involved in the very joyful work of helping people find a better way. And this opportunity to take it to a different level, to work with all of you, to work with our legislators, to work with our neighbors, our community leaders, to work with our teachers and the students that they are helping usher into a better future as their representative, is something that it's too majestic to even describe. I could not have told you what I was going to be facing in 1996 as a new representative, all the things that I've worked on over those years, and worked on them with people. And we were able to make things better bit by bit. Didn't always win. You don't always win. You lose a lot more than you win. But you keep inching forward, and that's how we have built this country and built the prosperity that was our parents' hope and expectations for us, that again the corporate and billionaire class are trying to take away from us. And this is the time we have to step up and meet the moment. So no, I don't want to be in Washington, but I want to be with you. And in order to get there, I'm going to need your help, and I ask for your vote.
Yeah.
thank you.
So I know I'm not a born and bred Mainer, and that is everyone's biggest critique, is that I'm not from here. But I am from a place just like here, and I am in your homes right now, doing the hard work, doing the good work, seeing the bad and the ugly, but also the really great parts. I'm there for some of people's last moments as a hospice social worker. I'm there at driving tests with adults who finally got the courage with an intellectual disability to go and test for a driver's license. And I'm there at Summer Olympics or Special Olympics, watching all of my clients get gold medals. And everything in between. It's such a joy to be here in Maine and to be campaigning in Maine. I think right now in Washington, there is a need for a new kind of leadership. Young leadership, women leadership, social workers, minorities, someone that is indigenous. We have to have a new outlook on what our government can do for us. It has to be creative, and there has to be ingenuity, there has to be imagination to believe in a future that all humans are cared for and the environment is respected and also restored and our dreams become achievable, not just far out dreams. And I really believe in that. Like I said, I was raised by a single mom in poverty. I have slept in the backseat of cars. I have heated up my paid for by SNAP meals in motel microwaves. And I just graduated as the first generation graduate student from the University of Maine with my master's of social work.
Nice.
And I'm so proud of all these things, but it's really hard to be a 29-year-old in America. I don't remember a time when someone could purchase a home. That's not something that's happened in my lifetime. I've never thought I could own a home. My cars are 2014 and 2016 Toyotas that are barely holding on right now with these main roads and gas prices. There needs to be real people in Congress because real people see the urgency of the moment right now. I know that we have to take small steps to get to all the places we want to go, but I know what the importance and priorities of those steps are. I'm in people's homes right now. People do not have access to health care. They cannot afford their glasses, their hearing aids. They go to the doctor after they've hurt their hip. They're put into a rehab facility, and then the insurance company tells you have to leave, even though you're not ready, even though your spouse can't take care of you. You have to wait 6 months just to get to a dentist. That turns into behaviors for people with intellectual disabilities. Imagine having a rotten tooth, but you also have schizophrenia. How do you deal with that? It becomes a public health issue, and we are in a public health crisis, and we need social workers in office to help fix these systems that are completely deteriorating in front of us, and we have an administration that's intentionally tearing apart these systems. There's no one better to go in and write policy for these systems that cost billions of dollars a year than someone who uses those systems. It's why I think I am the best candidate up here, and I really hope to earn your vote, your first ranked choice on June 9th. I think we can make really transformational moves in this state with a general campaign where my finances are going to help Mainers on the ground. There will be millions of dollars coming into the state from both parties over the next couple of months, and you need to make sure whichever one of us wins is putting that money directly back into you. Not mailers, not TV, back into you. And that's what I plan to do, that's what I promise to do, and it's what I'll keep doing when I get to Washington, is fighting for Mainers.
Nice.
Thank you. And Jordan, finish us up.
I just want to explain why I decided to run in the first place. I am not somebody that has ever aspired to be a politician. I believe that running for office in public service is a calling, something that meets a moment. You don't plan for it. And that is the family I come from. My father's a pastor, my mom's a teacher. But beyond that, my grandfather, who's here, I think, really is who taught me that the best. And that is because sometimes you are called to do things that are very dangerous and inconvenient. And my grandfather, he served as a medical missionary, a doctor in the Congo. And the story I remember very young learning about was when he went over there. What year was it? 60. Is when the Congo first got independence. He had 5 young kids, 2 are here, and he went over in an empty 747 flight to the Congo because all of the planes were going there to take people out. And he was set by himself on a plane to go there because that's what he was called to do, that's what he needed to do, and he brought his whole family with him. This is not a convenient time really to run for office. My daughter, Our first child was born 11 days before Trump's inauguration. But I felt like called to step forward and run because I do know it's broken. I understand after years of working in Congress that what is holding us back is the flood of big money and corporate money into our politics, which has eroded all trust with the public about that institution, about Washington actually trying to solve our problems. And that is why I talk so often about this issue of corruption, because I believe it is what we need to solve first to restore that trust, but also to take down the barriers so that we can achieve the historic change that people need. And I will fight for that every single day. I believe that at the most basic level, all people want is a member of Congress that understands their job simply as to serve and represent them to the best of their ability, not to weigh what is good for them against what the needs of the wealthy or corporations are, but to just serve and improve their lives. And that is why I'm running, and I just wanted to share that story of how I view elected office, how I view public service. And another thing I just love about our state is I can tell you, getting to know my fellow candidates, is they are public servants. They are in this for the right reasons, and that is so many people that have stepped up to run for office in this moment of crisis across our state. And just very proud of that, and have just enjoyed, as we reach the final 2 weeks, getting to spend time with these folks. Thank you.
Well, there you have it. I want to tell you guys, the four of you, how proud you make me to be a Mainer. And I see two people who have dedicated a large portion of their lives to public service. And I'm very proud to have lived under the policies and the legislation and things that you have set. And I also see two other people who are going to be policymakers and do these things and represent Maine very well. And no matter what happens, you have put yourself out there. You have exposed yourself to microscopes and magnifying glasses, and every little time that you blinked funny to do this and to help the people. And I know that politics is a very strange occupation, so to speak, and sometimes you have to do things to get other things done and things like that. I truly believe, however, that everybody gets into it for the same reasons that you all did, which is to help the people. And having these forums and looking out and seeing friends and neighbors and people here today who are willing to come and listen, to come and vote, to come help, make Maine a better place, makes me proud to be a Mainer as well. So I thank you for stepping up to the plate and getting things done. And I thank all of you for coming out here today. And that's kind of that. These four candidates will likely go back to their little tables, and you can press the flush with them, and they will shake babies and kiss hands and do all of those sorts of things. Well, you know, and that's that. I'm going to hand the last thing of the day over to Lise, and thank you for your time, and I hope you had a good day.
Thank you so much for that. I just want to thank you all again, and I want to say from the bottom of my heart how makes me cry. Democrats coming together like this, and four of you stepping up as you have, you're all great. So whoever wins, I want you to know that we as the Somerset County Democrats and everybody in this room are going to put 110% of our effort behind making sure we elect a Democrat in November in the House and in the Senate and in the Blaine House, and for every position down the ballot. We've got some amazing folks running over there, our local candidates, and I want to thank you all for being here today. It really means a lot. So now